Although it works in mysterious ways, no matter how dark the day, His truth will light the way, I know. Open the heart for the world to know, this day the truth be told. These are the chronicles of my soul.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. I am eternal.
Yo, from the back of the bus, now I'm up in your grill. Doing things, spitting slang that you can't even feel. Imitating steady, waiting for the next episode. Anticipating my creations while you hate on the low. I make you stop or go like remote control. Freeze time when I rhyme, the universe unfolds. When I blow, it's atomic, supersonic, my phonic, electronic, I'm bionic, and my versions are chronic. Once illiterate, now I spit endless amounts of words, verbs, nouns, sounds you can't even pronounce. So many flows stack, I don't even bother to count. Play my rap on the track, best believe you gon' bounce. Every ounce of my soul goes into the flow. Ain't no limit to the places where my mind can go. Stay connected to the mental and the spiritual. Produce unlimited amounts of material. From a slave in chains, now I'm bringing the pain. Hearing screams in your dreams, tormenting your brain. 9 for a 9, fight fire with rain. Kill your flame and in shame, you will praise my name. I remain unchanged while you fade to black. Spit fire when I rap, and you melt like wax. Perpetuate, ain't no limit to my potential. Invincible, powerful, eternal. Let's go, let's go.
I am eternal.
Now why you standing there looking all confused and shocked? You can kill Dr. King, but the dream don't stop. It keeps flowing and I'm glowing like a beam of light. You can stare if you dare, but you might lose sight. I'm too bright, you can't see, you can't handle the sun. Let alone try to stare upon the chosen one. If you want some, come, cause my mic weighs a ton. But in the end, all buses get beat like a drum. I overcome all odds with finesse and skill. Making moves like jets coming in for the kick. I stay hot, never dry, below 1,000 degrees. An epidemic when I finish, spreading like a disease. Stopping enemies, enemy tracks, they don't match. By the time I react, they've been wiped off the map. Once I make contact, that's it. Send them through a place much darker than a solar eclipse. I am the cure, making sure that the real gets dry. I don't care why you're hiding, don't care what you got. Let your ego go and you can ride with me. I stay slave while I'm cooling in the land of the free. So if you can't stand the heat, then you best break north. Cause I'm hotter than a torch and you will get scorched. I am perpetual, no limit to my potential. Invincible, powerful, eternal. Let's go, come on.
As a child had a smile that could light the sky. Melt your heart when you stared into my big brown eyes. Mama tried, but only God could have prevented the war that would begin when the devil came and knocked on the door. We were poor, so my family fought against all odds. Did our best to show respect and love and faith in God. But when you're young in this drama, trusting God all you wanna, your only hero when your savior bears the face of your mama. When she cried, I cried, unconditional friends. But that died when she couldn't hide her struggles within. So it begins, little boy, broken heart, broken home. No child that age should ever feel so alone. Hit the streets, hit the weed by the age of 10. My connection to affection only found in my friends. I never had to pretend they understood where I've been. All for one for all, in our darkest of sins. At age 12, saw my first jail cell, and it was hell. Best believe brought me down on my knees. Where did I fail? I went from video games to playing games with my life. From break dancing to dancing with the devil under the street lights. Long nights, every day, harder to cope. So I stayed medicated with the liquor and dope. With the school just to feel like I was human. But I felt so disconnected, my perspective polluted and infected. Feeling rejected, dear mama, there ain't nothing to gain. Your little baby boy's dying, hear me calling your name. I never meant to cause you sorrow, never no kind of pain. I only want to see you laughing in the purple rain. I cried in vain, no one came deeper into the game. 16, no pain, hooked on rock cocaine. Satan laughed as I fell deeper into my sins. I hated him, the sorry bastard, and I wanted revenge. You got me broken, got me hooked on my pipe, no escape. A 38 hollow point to the head is my fate. I pull the trigger now, pow, and it's drawn, it's done. No more illusion or confusion, Father, forgive your son. That will be done, it seems your will is only killing me slow. Give me a sign, let me know, cause I'm ready to go. I'm sick of pimps and hoes and dope and living life by the trigger. Sick of the street, sick of ignorant niggas. I'm drinking liquor, trying to cope, hoping it'll drown my pain like water. God make it rain. Hell is near, I feel the flames getting hotter, my soul is torn. I curse the day that I was born.
The Lord works in mysterious ways. No matter how dark the day, His
truth will light the way, I know. Open heart for the world to know. This day the truth be told. These are the chronicles of my soul.
What if I told you that there is life after death, and the most unlikely of heroes become warriors? That dreams do come true, just not in a way you expect. Sometimes the power of love flows stronger than the river, and culture and tradition define family, as you will discover in this true story about the life, death, and rebirth of a native son. Summer 1970. In the city of Tacoma, on the banks of the Puyallup River, the Puyallup Indians, native to the area, and hundreds of Indians from tribes all over the country are unified and prepared to lay down their lives for the future of their tribes. After decades of fighting for basic human rights and striving to preserve their traditions and culture, the Indians had nothing to lose. The Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854 states that the U.S. government would recognize and promise traditional native fishing and hunting rights to the Puyallups and other Indian tribes. The U.S. government lied, breaking these promises and conjuring new ways to nullify the agreements made with the Indians. Over time, Indians who attempted to fish in their traditional rivers were beaten, shot, and terrorized, including women, children, and the elderly. Their nets and watercrafts were vandalized and destroyed. These hateful acts of the government and non-Indians culminated into one clear message: we will assimilate the Indians and they will concede, or we will eradicate them. Standing at just under 5 feet 4 inches, Puyallup Indian and Tribal Councilwoman Ramona Bennett would help bring her tribal people out of the shadows of hopelessness and despair. She became the voice of an entire tribal people, entrusted to take back what was stolen, restore what was broken, mend the spiritual wounds of her people, and encourage all Indians to embrace their Indian traditions and culture.
When I was elected to the council, it flipped my life over. Suddenly I had responsibilities, and it was for a tribe that had nothing. And so when I came here, I was already angry. The anger that I carried from what had happened to my ancestors and my tribe just boiled up, and that's what I ran off for years.
And ran she did. Ramona was relentless, never backing down or sacrificing the needs of her tribal people when it was time to negotiate. An Indian warrior can be described as someone with a wide range of emotions: prideful, courageous, with an abiding respect for tribal and familiar traditions. Ramona was a warrior for her people, encouraging them to keep the faith and stand strong and proud through every battle.
She could do it in a way that was very humble, brave, and provoking. And they could provoke attention. It's just like, listen to me. We're ready to lay down our lives because our children's lives depend on it.
As a leader, Ramona knew it was important to prepare others to be leaders. She shared stories and experiences with tribal youth and inspired other women to be strong. Ramona credits many of them for their own fearlessness and leadership.
It was mostly Maisel and Suzette and I that just picked up the ball and ran with it. Maisel and Suzette they had the fire.
And she also shared with me that she learned this from watching the blacks, the women in Washington D.C., where they were being beat up. Right when they were being beat up, they were literally being clubbed, and they would be singing, freedom, the freedom song. Stories hit me really hard when I hear this because, and she said they had nothing but their bodies to lay down, and that's what they were offering for freedom.
So with nothing to lose and only their bodies to sacrifice for rights and freedom, the Indians stood brave, fearless, and prepared to die on the banks of the Puyallup River. Mean and hateful faces stared at them from the bridge above. Rifles aimed, ready to fire. The police ordered the Indians out of their camp, but they stood their ground. Gunshots echoed in the sky. Police stormed the riverbank camp, violently attacking the Indians as they scattered, fearing for their lives. More than 60 Indians were arrested, including Ramona Bennett, who fought back when police pushed her. She would later face up to 35 years in prison. When it was over, no one was killed. The camp was bulldozed, but Indian pride was stronger than ever. The brave actions of the Indians inspired people all over the world, including famous actors, actresses, and other civil rights leaders. And 4 years later, in 1974, resulted in Judge George Hugo Boat of the U.S. District Court reaffirming the rights of the Indians to fish in accustomed places. This is historically known as the Boat Decision. But the fight was not over. In Tacoma, Washington, on October 25, 1970, at 7:15 p.m., a beautiful Caucasian woman gave birth to Charles Lamont Carson at Tacoma General Hospital. Baby Charles was now the youngest member of his new family, consisting of his mother, future adoptive father, and big brother. The small family lived in Hilltop, Tacoma on 25th and K Street until 1974. When Charles was 4 years old, they relocated to a small, modest home on 35th and McKinley Avenue in East Side, Tacoma. Charles had a bright smile and a rounded afro that framed his young face. He attended Head Start at McCarver Elementary in Hilltop, Tacoma. He then attended Rogers Elementary School, just 6 blocks away from the family home. Church was important to his mother, so Charles and his brother went to Sunday school at Trinity United Methodist Church, just 1.5 blocks away from their home. As a young boy, life seemed carefree. He loved his family, especially his mother. Charles was a mama's boy. He loved to please his mother and receive her praise when he did well at home or at school. He was very close to his brother Anthony, and the siblings would remain close throughout their lives. His adoptive father was like a superhero to Charles, strong, tough, yet funny and playful. Charles made friends with dozens of kids at school and in the surrounding neighborhoods. His friendships were diverse and meaningful. This tight-knit group of friends played team baseball together, spent the night at each other's houses, and after school and on the weekends played football, rode bikes, and ventured out, armed only with their imaginations, stamping their footprints in places both discovered and undiscovered. It was a storybook playland for children, beautiful spaces and dozens of diverse pieces that merged to create a fantastic puzzle.
Us kids, we grew up, we were tight. I've seen lots of movies over the days that show tight-knit groups of children. It was nothing like us. We were tight. We were family.
We all had different things that happened in our lives, you know, in different families, you know. But once we got out there in the community, then we were all family.
And the only thing we cared about on the east side, can you play basketball? Can you play baseball? Do you have a bat? Do you have a glove? If you did, you were in.
Oh, it was fun. Everybody knew everybody. You could walk to a friend's house that was right down the street. The store was right there, the corner store, the schools, everything was like all within a certain area.
I grew up on the east side of Tacoma, and I went to Bowes Elementary School, I went to Galt Middle School, and I graduated from Lincoln High School.
We just would dip off all up through McKinley and Portland Ave, and, you know, go to the Gulch there on Portland Ave, and just, you know, everything was just something new to do, an adventure. And for me, it was always mischief. You know, I was always looking for something to get into.
We used to jump ramps in front of the house sometimes, and my dad didn't appreciate that shit. He said, "Hey!" yelling out the door at me.
We had Indian, Black, Chinese,
Samoan, Asian. We didn't care, man.
We didn't care, and our parents didn't care.
You know, but once we got outside of our homes, that's where the family was the closest. You know, that's where we stuck together.
The things that we had in common was our struggles of, you know, having single moms or households that were struggling. But it was, you know, the fact that we were all broke was more unifying.
We built some friendships down there, man. We had I have so many friends still from Rogers from 40 years ago that I'm still friends with today because we had such a tight bond and we came from the same grass, man. That's what we did.
The east side was safe. It was fun.
And I, growing up on the east side, I think it gives you some grit and street smarts. And
shoot, man, like I said, man, I wouldn't change nothing about where I came from, how I grew up, and the people that I met along the way.
When I grew up on the east side of Tacoma, that's when I really knew that people, I knew the word hate, and what all it had to offer for me was a lot of anger. Cops messing with me, throwing me on the ground when I was walking to Galt Junior High. So they were making fun of me on the daily, so everywhere I went, you know, people are taking shots at me, you know, because I didn't know what else to be but Indian.
Being native on the east side as a little girl, I can remember being teased, waiting at the bus stop, and with my grandmother, and a couple of kids come by, and me and my brother, they looked at me and my brother and just went, ooh. And I looked at my grandmother and I said, why are they treating us so differently? Something I had to deal with.
Me being native, growing up on the east side of Tacoma, looking back, I would say it's pretty sobering, thinking about just how people viewed Indians. Like in the grocery stores, they would look at me like I was dirty, or like I was gonna steal something, or they had to keep an extra eye on me.
This is when I began to really learn what and how Indians, there was a lot of prejudice against Indians in society as a whole. And the public schools in this area believed that Indian children were slow and stupid, and it took longer for them to learn. And they even told us that. You know, teachers told us this.
Charles loved school and excelled. He participated in several activities ranging from creative writing class, Young Authors Club, Cub Scouts, and baseball. He won a school district regional spelling bee when he was 10 years old. He even made a working calculator. Charles's love for music began to shine. He was influenced by such artists as AC/DC, George Benson, Kenny Rogers, and the Jackson 5. In third grade, he walked onto the stage with the bongo drum, and in front of the entire school, played his drum and sang his favorite song by the band Kiss, 2000 Man. His smile was bright and infectious. He loved his mother and was very close to his brother Tony. Charles was just a kid, and like so many other kids on the East Side, he just wanted to play and have fun. All he needed was the love of his friends and family. But beyond the light of his smile and hopeful brown eyes, the ghosts of things that kill a child's smile and light were lurking and cast their eyes upon him. Dark days were coming. The Cushman Indian Hospital was established in 1920 in Tacoma, Washington to serve Indian populations in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. In 1959, the Federal Department of Health, Education, and Welfare illegally closed the Cushman Hospital and then transferred ownership to the state of Washington in 1961.
And that hospital was a regional hospital. It served Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. And all these Indians were brought in that had tuberculosis, and they were chopped up, and some of them died here. We had sold land to the government to be used for a hospital. And see, we sold that land because they promised us the best medical care forever and jobs.
This was another breach in treaty guarantees for the Indians, leaving them with no real health care services and jobs for their people.
We had nothing, and we had this terrible, painful history.
You know, it was promised to us Indians, you know, and the treaties promised these things. You know, they promised education, they promised medical, they promised the Indians that they would, but then they started taking it away.
In October 1976, the Puyallup tribe decided to act. Armed and determined, the Puyallups took over the building and occupied it for 7 days. During the 7-day occupation, the Puyallup Indians were organized. Supporters from nearly every race and culture and from prominent social action groups also stood by the Puyallups, offering to work and some even willing to join in and share the risks. Countless tribes from all over the country came in support of this historic and unprecedented moment in Native American history.
And I was actually running a track meet in Canada when they actually took it over, but you hear it on the news, you know. Indians take over Cascadia, blah, 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 you know. This one hospital takeover would determine what would happen to every single tribe in the area up and down the coast, because if they lost, we would lose everything. Every Indian tribe would lose it. This was monumental to win back the rights, which was the fishing rights. The Puyallup set the standard. If we did not win the battle, if they did not win the battle, we would all lose.
The takeover and occupation can be credited to the leadership, bravery, and strength of many Indian women. Once again, in the forefront of it all was Ramona Bennett. She was able to communicate the importance of the Indian occupation clearly, earning the respect and attention of the media and the support of the public. Ramona would not be swayed when it came down to achieving justice and self-determination for her tribe.
See, I take everything seriously. I finish everything I start. Everything. No matter what it is, I do finish everything.
The outcome of this pivotal and historic moment resulted in critical upgrades and perpetual improvements for the Puyallup tribe. In 1976, the Puyallup Tribal Health Authority was the first ambulatory health clinic to enter into a 638 self-determination contract with the United States government's Indian Health Service.
You know, and it didn't take just, well, we're going to take it over. It took lives. these people that took over that hospital were putting their life on the line. You know, they knew they could die any day.
Once upon a time, the Puyallup tribe was nearly desolate, with no resources to provide quality health care for its people. The Puyallup tribe now has a nationally recognized healthcare clinic, treatment center, and counseling center, each named in traditional Puyallup native language. The Puyallup Tribal Health Authority's active patient population is more than 10,000 American Indians and Alaskan Native individuals, representing over 200 tribes.
They wanted us to have more than what they had. And you know, the funny thing, I didn't even know we were poor. Yeah. Because we were really rich. And oh my God, I'm gonna cry. To know that we have a secure place to do that is what they created for us. We can go to a clinic and get our teeth done. We can get our health care. We have mental health now. We have counselors. We never had any of these things before. Those were all fought for. They were not free. Yeah. What did Ramona want from you? You know, it wasn't about them. It wasn't selfish. It was all about making a better future for our kids. You know, it's about making things beautiful. So
We've been involved in the legislative process for the past several years and have now decided to act. The hospital is ours and we have it. We are the Puyallup Nation.
It was my 9th birthday, and I got a bike. And back then, you know, you came home when the street lights came on. That was like a signal, you know. They let me ride my bike with my best friend Travis, kind of test ride it. I ride 4 blocks down to the elementary school and do a couple, you know, jumps and whatever. And we start riding back, and the street lights come on. And I get home, and literally, I remember, why aren't you back before the street lights, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like kind of looking, and the next thing you know, dude, I'm getting my ass tore up with an extension cord with my pants down. It just, that was one moment, but it just became violent. And I think it was already violent. But as a little kid, you're not seeing that. My mom, you know, would get beat down, wailing on the floor. As a little kid, you're like going up to your mom, mommy, mommy, and all that stuff. I remember me and Tony doing that all the time. Then you start noticing the wine bottles. You start noticing the alcohol. And then as a kid, you just start living in fear.
You know, I remember just from basically the time I was basically around 7 years old, man, it just went from a childhood to straight chaos, man. You get drunk and come in and beat my mom. I remember him like throwing, what was that, like a 100-gallon fish tank on the floor. Just chaos. I remember pimps running through the house, chasing hookers, and violence and chaos, you know. And for kids just shouldn't need to deal like that, man. Shouldn't have to see all that, man, but we did.
My family life didn't damage what I was doing at school yet, but I was afraid to go home. I would just like go to friends' houses, you know, and here's what's sad, man. I would do it knowing that when I got home, I was going to get whooped. So it was almost like prolonging a whooping to have extra peace. Family changed because I think over time things started coming out that were always there. I would be deathly afraid of my mom at this point. At a young age, I started smoking weed when I was 9. We had weed plants in our garden. But I started smoking cigarettes, stealing from Safeway, trying to be cool with the older kids, so I'd steal things for them. Then my brother, out of nowhere, is gone. Well, then I find out later, he got sent to Western State to be evaluated because he got caught smoking a cigarette.
Like I end up in Raymond Hall for smoking a cigarette in a cage, and I'm like, I remember crying for mom in there, and then I had to toughen up because I heard somebody go, man, I heard some little kid bawling. People don't really understand it through the eyes of a kid, where it's like, man, I have to survive this world.
That's where friends really became important for me. Like my next door neighbor, Yvonne, we call her Coco. She was like my go-to, man. We would unfortunately we shared fear together. We shared, what was happening, checking on each other. Hey, I heard you getting your butt tore up. Are you okay?
We were the best of buds. We just spent so much time together. We were allies, and we had our own code language that we used that didn't require words, and we were always there for each other, and I lived next door to him. I'm sorry. So I'm trying to think of our parents being young, but our parents were crazy. I don't have any other words for it. They were abusive. Their friendship was often detrimental to our life. It seemed like they competed to who could beat their children the most. And if one said, oh, you didn't get them enough, the other one would go back and do some more. So,
and I just always felt like he was kind of troubled a little bit, but just really a sweet guy overall. I never, saw a rotten, horrible person in him. I always saw actually a nice person, but just kind of angry.
Was in 7th grade at Galt, and by now, man, I'm full-blown weed head, drinking alcohol, popping pills.
And I'm standing at my locker, and next thing you know, I'm, getting harassed by two of these brothers. I don't even know who they were, but they're bigger.
I walk in the main, or the annex, and he's standing by his locker. Around the corner come these two punk bullies, right? These two dudes.
So I had my hair braided up, leather hair wraps on my braids, a ribbon shirt on, even a feather in my hair.
And you hear them, look at this, they calling him the, F word and all this stuff, and sissy, and they go up and start flipping his braids, right?
And so I was trying to ignore him and stuff, and then Mont, he was like, hey, what the f-? He was just, trying to run interference or something so they wouldn't mess with me.
I was like, man, F you, and get off of him. You guys are punks and whatever, trying to get all, well, these guys were kind of big.
But then we both ended up getting roughed up. They put him in like some kind of a headlock full Nelson thing, and they're jamming me up against my locker and punching me in my back and my sides.
So that's my first connection, was I'm defending this dude from these other dudes. Well, we both get roughed up. Me and Muck both get roughed up. We're 7th grade. I walked home with Muck that day. Little did I know that moment would be life-changing for me down the line.
One day, Charles really went off. So with him sitting there next to my desk, I called his father and I told his father I was going to send Charles home and see if he can talk to him, because he is not doing what he needs to do. He's too bright. His father said, yeah, send him home. I'll take care of him. And I thought, that doesn't sound good, but maybe he'll have a good talk with him. The next morning, I came to work kind of early. I came in the side door, and there was Charles sitting on the steps, bruised face, just beaten up. And Charles said, my father beat me with the phone as soon as I got home, that same phone you called him on it. My heart was broken. My heart was broken. I thought, I did this to this kid. I got him abused. I carried that story in my heart for years, and I can't tell you how many people I've told that story to.
Friends down the street, Ronnie Corrado, Andy Bitts, of course, Muck. I could go on and on. These become like my go-tos, and my refuge. And even their parents started to see, why is this kid always around? Why is this kid, does he have a home? Things of that nature. But I would never speak on it. So you know, home was just, it was not a home. It was like voluntarily locking yourself up in jail every day. I'm just a kid. I loved playing. I loved baseball. I loved my friends. I loved school. I did everything my mom asked me to do when I was a young kid. If she said lock the door, don't answer, don't talk to anybody, I did it. Chores, I did it. Whatever it was, I did it. Or you cannot convince me that you have love flowing through you, but you're whipping your kid with an extension cord or a pipe or a stick. And not just that, you're saying, drop your pants. That's not love, man. There's something else going on there.
As far as in our relationship, you were, even back then, like I remember you had a sound belief in God, and you had you just had a moral compass, where mine was off the Richter. I don't know. I remember being a kid, man, and just feeling like a throwaway. Because everybody was quick to send me to jail, prison. The cops would come, beat my ass. I mean, all kinds of, I just didn't understand life. It's like the wrath of God came early. But that's how I felt. And you were like the one stable thing in my life. You know, with my kid brother.
So all this time, you know, my brother's missing. Like, I don't know where he's at. Then I'm hearing stories about, oh, your brother's in Raymond Hall. You know, your brother's in a foster home. Then we would visit him in foster homes. So I would always hear this message: you're going to be just like your brother. You're going to be just like your brother, right? Little did they know that that was fine by me. He was my big brother. Raymond Hall for the first time, over $3 worth of quarters. I'm 11 years old, and I'm in the back of that damn cop car, and I'm looking right at my house. I can see my house from the store. All I heard was, you're going to be just like your brother. You're going to be just like your brother. Hustling out there, you know, ounces, half kilos, delivering, you know, I ran 2 crack houses. Never got caught for it. Not that I'm not glamorizing. What I'm saying is, I spent more time in Raymond Hall for nothing. And it screwed my whole life up. I told on my mom one time. I actually snuck and called the police because my mom took a PVC pipe and hit me across the face with it. Cops came to my house. My mom looked right at that cop and said, you can do and say what you want, but I'm going to whoop his ass when you leave. You know, whatever, man. This is me against whatever. Don't know if my mom wants me anymore. And next thing you know, oh, well, Charles, we found a foster home for you. So now I'm going to foster homes. I think by then I was already disconnected. I went from being a kid, smiley kid that loved life and whatever, to a pissed off, angry, get out of my face, or I will hit you with a brick. Take family breakdown, wipe the smile off a kid's face, beat him, work him to death. Well, by the 7th grade, he's totally disconnected. He's getting suspended. He's hitting teachers. He's cussing. He's yelling. He's screaming, right? Now he's in Raymond Hall. You know, one day he's out the next. He's actually afraid to go back home from Raymond Hall, and sometimes would rather stay, you know, drugs and alcohol and wine and stuff in the home. You have his own drug and alcohol use coming into play. School becomes the retreat, and then pretty soon that collapses because drugs catch up to you. The things at home start to catch up to you. And I had already experimented with things at age 9 that these kids were just now getting into. I'm in survival mode. Foster homes. Where's my brother? Which friends love me? Does my mom love me? I end up hitting the streets, right? Now I'm up on Hilltop. I'm selling crack. I'm running crack houses. But these are all things, and they just compile and compile and compile. And next thing you know, it just explodes. By the time it all just comes crumbling down, I'm face down on the ground with a shotgun to the back of my head, and I'm praying to God saying, is this it? I tell everybody all the time, because they be like, dang, Charles, you went through some stuff. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, dude, I didn't even go through 3/4 of what my brother went through.
And told me to take off all my clothes and took a leather leash, you know, one of them braided ones. I remember it was about as big as my pinky is now. and he just beat me, dude, so I couldn't move, man. You know, people really don't grasp when I tell them that I have no good memories. They just don't understand that. I'm sure everybody goes, well, everybody's got to have some, but I really just don't. You know, the world to me was from the gate survival.
2, 3. How do you feel when you hear her shout and the screams in the night echo through the house? Do you cry or do you live in fear? Wishing on a star to make you disappear. She's not the same mama that you knew as a child. She's a monster. Drugs done drove her wild. She never smiles, and she no longer shows the kind of love a mother shows, so her children can grow. Every night now, when the clock strikes 10, the house shakes. Now she's at it again. From your bedroom, a familiar scream. Your little brother cries out, "Mama, don't be mean," but it's too late. She smacks his face. He's only 6 years old, so he has no place he can run to except to you. So with tears in your eyes, you take him into your room and you wonder, how could it come to be that your own mother is now your worst enemy? Keep your head up, one day the screams will fade. Close your eyes and you pray, the Lord will take you away. I can feel you when you cry inside, but you'll get by if you just believe. I can feel you, I'll be by your side. Baby, close your eyes. Somebody love you. Under the street lights is where you live your life, where the moon shines down on the beast of the night.
As the night turned to light and as sure as the day brings truth, born again, set free from a tormented youth, full of addiction, with emotional and spiritual wounds, I kicked my habits and like Lazarus, I rose from the tomb.
I've witnessed murder, I've witnessed gunshots, and when I got shot, that really turned me around in my thoughts about life, because I almost did die. On the way back in the ambulance, everything went through my head. I mean, I was only 17 years old. I had already been locked up, 18 times. Suicide crossed my mind.
The scenario was totally different. I was basically dead. I was not physically, but dude, I was drained. When I was at the hospital, I didn't know where to go. So I called my mom. It's kind of the go-to thing, right? So I go home and, it just, the vibe was gone. There was no connection. I was beat up, dude. I was like tired and weak. Get the F out and blah, blah, blah. So I literally, imagine me moving in slow motion, just not caring, and all my stuff's getting thrown out in the front yard on the porch. And I just went out there and sat on the porch.
I had seen Charles lots of times. My boys had converted a treehouse into an apartment for him, and he used to sneak in and out of the house all the time. And he was being thrown out.
How old was he?
He was 17.
Oh,
His stuff was all over the yard.
So I'm sitting on the front porch, and timing is, oh gosh, it's everything, I guess, when you think of things in retrospect, and but here comes my friend Luck, my brother Luck, and he's in the car with his mom. And his mom is Ramona Bennett.
I told him to get in the station wagon, and we went home. And now what I didn't know was that the week before he was stripped, beat, shot, and left for dead.
They stop in the middle of the street, and Ramona says, "Get in the car." But she comes over and she starts helping me get my stuff, and Luck is helping me gather my stuff, and Ramona took me home. And that's where things started to change for me. Once I moved in, I saw a family function for the first time. Like, I had never seen this. Like, you have Ramona, you have Clyde, the dad, and you have all these beautiful kids, including my brother Luck and Muck, and Auntie Sue, but then you have all the other little kids, like my sister Abid, my little brother Yelki. You have all my other little buddies like Inukami and Michelle Lemire, and all these different beautiful native kids.
And so I just told him, if you can stay clean and you can stay in school, you'll have a home and family as long as you want or need one.
Wow.
It was now, okay, if you're going to be a part of this family, there's going to be no drugs or chemicals, and you're going to go to school. And then she has this third rule. It's kind of funny, She says birth control school. She told me condoms.
Birth control college, birth control college.
And I felt loved at Ramona's. You have no idea what you can do when you have that stability. So I just kind of took off from there.
Charles did good, and most of the time we have to have someone who pushes. They every once in a while kick us in the butt. And I have a feeling that's what you did. But you know what else you did? You built a community around him. Because when I first met Charles, you know what I thought? I thought you sneaked off somewhere and had a baby and didn't tell me.
So, yeah, this is serious business now. So she's like, no, you need to get in school. But I had got kicked out of every school. So Oakland Alternative School, had come into play, years prior. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to head over there. So, I get on the bus and I go over and to enroll.
Oakland High School was the brainchild of the late Dr. Henry Burtness. It began, they were recognizing that we were having students that were not performing in our existing system. We needed something else to get the high school kids, preventing them from dropping out. Also, we had a policy that many of the schools where if a young lady became pregnant, she could no longer be within the regular schools. And the fact that they could have that experience and then have a legitimate education with a certificate, it meant so much.
And one of the questions was, do you or have you used substances, drugs or alcohol? And man, I said, yeah. Well, then they look at me and go, oh, well, we're going to require that you go to this, and whatever before you can enroll in school, right? And, I'm already kind of in a hopeless state. I'm just feeling hopeless about a lot of things. So I'm like, So I called Ramona. Ramona, all I remember is this. She says, hand the phone to whoever's sitting there.
I asked him to hand the phone to whoever had told him he couldn't go there. Substance abuse is legally a health problem. He cannot be denied a basic education.
Right.
Because of a health problem that violates federal law. And so write down the name of the school that he can go to, or I'll personally sue you, the school administrator, the school board as individuals, and the district as a whole. And she said, he can start here right now.
Oh my goodness.
And he came on the phone and said, what did you say? And I said, well, I'll talk to you when you get home. It's just consider this your first day with an advocate.
Right. She gave me the enrollment forms, and it was on. And I go home and I say, what did you say to this lady? And she said, well, I said, I want to know your name, the name of the administrator, the principal, and all these people, because this kid, Charles, has a right to his education, and substance abuse is viewed as a medical. I mean, she broke it down. And I got into school, man, and I'm like, tripping, and I made a vow, dude, and I don't know if you've ever done that, but certain things happen where you got to step your shit up. And I said to myself, dude, I'm gonna come into this school and I'm gonna kill it. because of what she did. I embraced it, and I did 4 years of high school in 2 years. Got student of the month 3-4 times. I like to feel like I became an example at that school, because that school was viewed as like the throwaway school for kids, especially young mothers who had children early on and they couldn't go to public school. So I decided, man, this is really the place, because there was nowhere for kids that had struggled. So I said, okay, let's put this on the map. That was my goal. Part of my daily routine would become going to the boys club. I start going up there and I bring my boom box, I'm bumping all my jams. And then I realized as I was walking in and out that I would see these certain kids, certain faces all the time. I'm actually looking at them. I remember this, looking at these kids going, damn, dude, they have a chance, in life. So I befriended a few of them, young kids. Anthony Andersek was one. Ryan Stone, of course.
I met Charles at the Tacoma Boys and Girls Club on the east side of Tacoma, probably around 1988. I remember always seeing Charles going upstairs into this weight room to lift weights and stuff like that. And I remember always going up there and saying, hey, what's up, man? Come shoot some hoops with me or something like that, I just remember he came down, we shot some hoops, and we used to always just that's where our bond started. And then he pretty much was like my big brother from there on out. And yeah, it's a blessing.
I decided to start doing stuff with them. So I would sit down with them and I would talk to them about things like self-esteem and family problems and, all the things that I kind of knew, that they were going through just by looking at them. Now I'm interacting with them on the daily. And now I start doing other things. Then it hit me one day. I was like, you know what? What if I could recruit more kids to come here? And so I would hit the streets. Literally, I would drive through East Side and Hilltop and different places, and just kind of say, hey, we've got some things going on over here, and then I started thinking about ideas of trainings and classes that I could do, and this was just me coming up with ideas, So next thing you know, the director comes up to me and says, Charles, you're doing some really cool stuff here, and we would like to nominate you for Boys Club Youth of the Year.
As I recall, I read a blurb somewhere, it was probably the Tacoma News Tribune, about this young man who had gotten the Youth of the Year award from the Boys and Girls Club.
Then one day, man, I'm in the weight room and I needed some water. So I walked downstairs and I opened the door. No sooner did I open that door, I looked to my left and here's this guy walking in with a little attaché case.
Let's see, where did we meet? It was the East Side Boys and Girls Club. Not exactly an environment that I felt comfortable in right offhand, but I saw Charles. I recognized his face from the picture and introduced myself, gave him my business card and said, I think we have some things to do together. I'd like to talk to you more about my project. Please call me if you want to.
I believe young people are just as important as adults, and that young people come up with ideas that are often even better than adults. So he's got me going right away.
With the notion that youth are not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of today, and that we need to provide supportive structures in order for them to be able to take that on.
And Stephen Harrell was there the whole time, training me, showing me, guiding me, slapping me when I needed it, mentoring me, giving me that father advice. If Ramona is considered in my life like the pinnacle of like an angel, then Steph and Harold is that other angel. Now, do you want to know what happened next?
I've been walking this lonely road so long. Am I ever gonna make it home? I don't know, but I gotta keep my head up high. Oh Lord, won't you take my hand? I wanna make it to the promised land. Help me be strong, lead me on and on.
Back on the streets after years under lock and key, conditioned by the system mentally but spiritually, he's still intact, going back to where it all began. As a child, now returning as a broken man. His only memories remind him of the poverty that pushed him to the edge and led him to the robbery. Identity of his father still a mystery. No synchronicity, dysfunctional family.
Well, the first things I started to do was going around to high schools, just letting people know about myself, about, you know, what I've been through.
And at that moment in his heart, he vowed to change his life. But hope is minimal for criminals fresh out the cage. Trying to find a job's like searching for a cure for AIDS. You do the crime, you do the time, but when they set you free, you're sentenced to a life of struggle in society.
You aren't afraid that gang members are going to get angry at you and get you?
Well, I mean, that they can get angry, but, you know, I don't look at it like that. I look at it like you're either for the good or you're not.
Testing them beyond endurance. He prays to God for a sign of some kind of assurance. That's when his spirit heard the voice coming from the line. I'll never let you walk alone. It's gonna be alright. Alright.
This lonely road so long. Am I ever gonna make it home? I don't know, but I gotta keep my head up high. Oh Lord, won't you take my hand? I wanna make it to the promised land. Help me be strong, lead me on and on.
Drugs, gangs, and violence were the new definition of the city of Tacoma. Over the next few years, Tacoma would become the most violent city in the nation. Numerous Tacoma citizens and organizations such as the Hilltop Action Coalition were actively taking steps for positive change. The Safe Streets campaign would emerge to mobilize Tacoma citizens, businesses, schools, and other active organizations. Stephen and Charles would partner with Safe Streets, and together they would do great things. This partnership would result in the creation of one of the most impactful community and youth intervention efforts the city had ever seen.
We were dealing with, it was so horrific. Regularly, there were these gang-style murders, you know, kids being shot in the back of their head, you know, in a car and left. And I mean, it's like, it was so hard for me to comprehend who could be doing this kind of stuff.
Priscilla was always a strong woman, stood her ground, and was in a position, man, where now a lot of people were watching her. When you're running Safe Streets, right, especially in that time, this is a pinnacle organization.
It's like we have to have opportunity for kids to be in the phase of development that they're in, to be with their peers and to really, really thrive.
Oh, gee, there are a lot of yeah buts. There are, and we hear it in the form of, we tried that before, or yeah, but we always call the cops and they never come. People have had to stay committed. They have had to rethink the strategy that they used last week.
Yeah, but to me is just a bunch of excuses, and to me it only shows young people that adults can be just as ignorant as they claim young people are.
My first recollection of meeting you was when Governor Booth Gardner came to Tacoma and we had that press conference, and you were asked to speak at the press conference about Safe Streets. So I was always feeling very protective of you because you were this young man and I didn't want anybody to take advantage of you. But before that, I was always wondering, I wonder what Charles thinks of me.
For me, Priscilla, I love her. You know, my Violence Getting the Message Across project, my music project, my mural project. I mean, I could go on and on. The police gang summit. These were all things Priscilla checked off and said okay on.
So you just joined in and you became that leader that we were all desperate for, I think, in the youth community.
Mentor, role model, right? Mother, teacher, okay? And dude, I love her, bottom line.
So you had this idea about late night.
She rarely said no to me and most always said yes. Late night was one of those yes moments.
Tacoma Center was hopping in the sense of that, but we needed to do something significant for the community. That's what the YMCA is as a mission statement. What's going on? How do we address? How do we be part of the solution? So I meet Charles Carson who walks in. I loved it because he was fearless and he was all about let's do something big. And I wanted to do something big too.
And I had been looking for things like that in my career forever. And to have somebody that can come in and do that can almost be emotional right now, where you say, where's this person been?
And I go in to the Tacoma Center YMCA in 1990. I'm so glad you're here, and I've heard a lot about you, and good job. And he's high five. He's giving me but it's this power grip where he could break your finger if you're not careful coming in. All right, I like what you're doing. I'm gonna introduce you to a guy named Phil Carter. He looks at my proposal, gets to the second page, and he shuts it. He goes, "Let's do it." And I want to cry because that decision would impact hundreds of kids. And it wasn't about me. It was like relief, that this place is actually going to give these kids a chance.
Those of us in the media are often accused of only reporting the bad news, but today we actually get to introduce you to one of the good guys.
Well, this is Charles Carson. He's co-founder of Tacoma's first late-night basketball program for youth, and he's also designed other youth training programs. And Charles is also featured in this month's Mademoiselle magazine as one of the 10 winners of the Do Something Brick Award for Community Leadership.
If it wasn't for late night, let's just throw it out there. People that could be dead, couldn't be dead. Like Charles Carson, my mentor, my friend, one of the biggest reasons I am who I am today.
It was a hard life for me growing up. I did not grow up with neither my mother or father. I grew up with my grandmother.
Some of my family members ended up, falling victim to the streets and banging and all that kind of stuff.
Like, we were exposed to quite a bit growing up, so it gave us an opportunity to see a path that we didn't want to take when it came to drugs, when it came to addiction, when it came to gangs, when it came to violence.
But one of the first times I ever actually heard you speak, you spoke to all of us. We had late night, everybody was there, you sat us down and you started talking and you were telling us about our story. And honestly, from my memory, it's one of the first times that I had ever saw somebody like me, a person of color, African-American man, be vulnerable in front of other men, young men, children. And I've always kind of like taken that whenever I'm in a situation, speaking to anyone, speaking to kids or whatever, or just in my daily life.
And also to Charles Carson, who's the co-founder and director of the Tacoma YMCA late night program. Now, we're not talking late night jokes and stand-up comedy. What do you do there?
The YMCA was so much for me. Those friendships that I developed down there are, and I say this in all seriousness, it hasn't been touched. Like, who we were outside of the Y didn't necessarily matter. It was once we were at the Y, it was like a family.
Charles is always there for you no matter what. I mean, if you come down here and you have a problem or whatever, he's always there. He always has an open ear to listen to what you got to tell him.
Charles, for me, I don't want to get emotional, but him being the head of that, I actually got to see an actual man in a leadership position. And then let's be serious, like, to see a black man running it and doing it, that's huge.
So, like, when he used to give us stories and inspiring, motivation and stuff like that, me personally, I just always thought that he was born like that. It was just like, man, this guy is like, this guy's straight. This is a straight angel. It just wasn't. It just wasn't real. To how much, positivity and motivation that he had in us. And not to even know about us.
On top of that, late night was a place for me to go at night that when, like I said, it was bad for me to, be around certain people because I knew he was going certain things, then I knew it was real easy for me to go to Y and get away from that. But after the Y, it was like I was going back to home to reality. And every weekend, I always look forward to going to the Y, Friday and Saturday. Because not only did I go down and play basketball, I went down there and interacted like with Charles, and we stayed late night till like 3 in the morning just laughing and joking and really getting to know each other. And if I wanted to, I can go to his house and he's going to cook for me, and then we're just going to make music, or what I'm saying, we had a lot of things in common. I just like to say, I respect him for everything he's done for me, and that's why I am who I am today, a good father, and I value life a little bit more because of Charles.
Just imagine, if there was no late night going on in 1991, if you didn't have a place for those 300-400 kids to go, just imagine how much more higher than the numbers could have been for not just the murder rates, but people getting locked up, I can't even stress how important it was, because me being not an at-risk kid, to see all the kids that did help, like, the Tony Andersecks, that we talk about, the Roberto Bergesons, like the OGs that were here in the beginning. There almost might not be like no Malachi Flynn's. You can almost might say there might not be no Isaiah Thomases if there was no late night. There'd be more bloodshed, more violence.
My home life was dysfunctional, and I say that because like my mom hoarded, and basically we didn't have normal living conditions, and my mom was pretty abusive, running around the streets, not really having a stable home environment. It was hard in a sense of just me feeling like I had a home or a place I could feel like was comfort and support. Sports kind of was my saving grace because I was pretty good at anything I tried, and I ended up playing obviously more basketball. I met Charles when I was a kid.
Charles to me is like, brother, big brother I never had, because, he's always there for me. I can always ask him for stuff, and he's just like, a good friend, and I look up to him in a lot of ways, and he's my buddy, Back to you.
And he became, he was a mentor, a big brother. He was somebody that, I felt like was in my corner. I never wanted my kids to go through what I went through. And, when I look at them, I want them to know that Dad's there.
What's up? I'm Dante Harris. I'm from Tacoma, Washington. 253 area, man. Hilltop born, Eastside raised. Basically, my childhood was interrupted. You know what I mean? What had happened was I had a mother that got hooked on the drugs when they pushed drugs in the community. I ended up getting raised up in foster care 27 times before I was 14 years old. Because of my age, being a young black male, a lot of people don't want you in their house. So they'll put you in a temporary house and they wait till one of the foster homes will take a black male. I felt like nobody was fighting for me to live. And in a way, it kind of just, I stopped fighting for myself. When the gangs kind of arose, I was right in the middle of where they try to get the young fellas involved. When the gangs really started taking over, they kind of even took over the kids that weren't trying to be in gangs, because there were so many gangs, you couldn't be by yourself. Late night was perfect for me because at that time I needed some stabilization. I entered in a stable home for the first time. Gave me a springboard, I would like to say, kind of gave me a little more structure. Even if you're from two different parts of the city, even sometimes you're from two different gangs and you find yourself at late night, it was kind of chill. We just gonna hoop today. You know what I mean? We just gonna hoop. We some kids trying to play some ball. There's a place where honestly you can be like, hey mom, I'm going to late night, they'll drop you off. Yeah, I'll take you there if that's what you want to do today. You want to go hoop tonight? Yeah, I'll be there at 1 to pick you up. Channeling basketball, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to late night. Because late night became somewhere for me to proclaim to be the nicest. I just remember the quick, swolled up dude with a banging curl. I just remember the curl. I was like, oh, this curl's clean. And I didn't know anything about you. And it was like the first time I seen you. And I just remember you watching you play. It was like, he's out here playing hard. He's out here playing ball, you know what I'm saying? And I respected the game. In hindsight, even that, playing against you guys with being young, I took advantage of all of that.
At one time, we were stripped from everything. And one thing the late night did was give kids a place to go. Because at one time, we had nowhere to go. And then on top of that, all the people used to come by and come through and help out the volunteers. And after they volunteered, they still wanted to stay.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, you still want to stay with all these kids? And man, that was just a lot of love back then. A lot of love for the YMCA. It was a great time.
So when Late Night started back in '91, and it was the height of gang violence, gang activity, I think the greatest impact that the Y made in the city of Tacoma was that it created a space for Bloods and Crips to come together and to just be people, be kids.
Let's see. Late night was my work-study job, so I was free labor for late night.
All right.
I remember the first, weekend that I was down at late night. It felt like organized chaos. It's like, damn, kids is everywhere, but they're where they're supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? And
I still have this to this day. The whole little small, it's like 2 pages of the late night program. I still have that to this day on how the program is run and what it's about and what the main overall goal is.
I mean, there was no compromise in his life at that time. And, not that anyone's perfect, but definitely Charles was someone that these kids could look up to and know that if they followed a similar pattern in their lives, that there's no way that they could fail.
The environment I was in, being in late night, and just how much it would affect the community at that time. And so looking back, I mean, gosh, it was a lot bigger than I had originally anticipated at the time, what it was going to do for our community in Tacoma.
All eyes were on us. We were the first of its kind of late night basketball. And people were looking for answers. And this worked. We had kids off the street on Friday night, and the police had said, with late night, the crime went down and the violent crime went down.
I don't care who it was. All you had was a t-shirt and shorts. You didn't know where anybody was from, what they did, nothing. And everybody treated everybody with respect.
And that was when I first met Charles. The young guys are always cocky, brash, arrogant,
athletic,
and they talk trash. They talk trash. And Charles was at the head of the class. Just all of us the way we conducted ourselves and the way we played the game and the way we treated each other. I mean, because a lot of these young guys never got it.
Yeah.
They never got it, but Charles did.
He would bring, I remember like Tomiko.
Yeah.
Damone, is it Damone?
Yeah, Damone.
Stoops. He would bring them with him.
Yeah.
And Ryan.
And Ryan. But after I think what they saw and how he behaved himself, because he would come in and show them, this is what I do. But we was telling and showing him what we do.
He became just, he didn't have to prove anything. He became one of the group, like we all became. And I got to help Charles out with a couple of his personal things, and saw the different familial side of him.
And then I recall there's an influx of some younger people. And first one that stood out was Charles. And somehow we just kind of gotten attached to each other. Charles might have been my first round draft pick. And when the younger kids coming in off the street, that really changed things up. I just realized I was being exposed to people that I would have never met. If I was even some minor part in it, that makes me really, really.
I said before, the thing I saw in Charles was what you see happen at the Y is the building of character. But over time, you build up the character of the camaraderie of the people you play with. And I always looked up to him. I mean, I don't think he knew that, but I always thought, wow, this guy, he's like a little Michael Jordan. You know, he can jump out of the gym and float through the air. And then it doesn't have anything to do with white, black, Native American, Asian, and all that. It was, hey, let's play the game and keep score and try to win.
It was a good relationship. It was a better relationship. I can give Charles 3 sentences and he can turn it into a $25,000 grant. He would see an opportunity in an event and try to make the event come true. And one of his great events was one time got me put in the back of a police car. Because we had over 400 kids. Next thing you know, all 400 kids jumped on me because I'm refereeing one of his games.
Because, man, there was killing going on and drug dealing, and they came to the Y as a refuge.
Well, there were drug dealers that were playing ball.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they came.
And everybody knew it.
Right.
And but it didn't seem to matter when you were on the court.
You were real on the court, and you put yourself out there, good and bad, and you wanted to be better. And I think these guys around this table all had a hand in your development, and I think that was significant.
And if anything I ever did for you helped make it easier for you to move forward like you have, then that's the best investment or use of my time and energy I could have ever had.
Yeah, the first time I met Charles, man, they talking trash on the court. I said, they ain't met me yet, that's all, lady. I said, I seen Charles' attitude change. I said, he started focusing on bringing younger people back down to the gym who he mentoring now. That's all you being more into the community, bringing younger people off the hilltop down there, bringing the ones that are rough, like you were, down to the Y and playing, and then seeing a different way of life.
I'm encouraging, cajoling, trying to motivate these people to get into and firmly into recovery to be clean and sober for the rest of their lives. For me to do my job now, I had to develop empathy, and I had to start developing that empathy with those kids at late night.
We share the same name, which is still a bond for me. But so I'm honored that you consider me someone who was important in your life, but I will tell you, you were important in my life.
Because as you know, I was a disciplinarian, but my goal was to provide structure and to provide something that the kids could depend on and know. When they came to school every day, they could expect adult support. They could expect a teacher that was going to teach them what and how they needed to be taught.
When I hear the name
Ramona Bennett, what really comes to my mind? A woman who is very concerned about the welfare of all citizens in the community, but also has not forgotten our own heritage and the challenges that are faced by Native Americans throughout the city of Tacoma and throughout the state and throughout our nation. And she was not doing it for Ramona. That's the most important part of it. She's doing it for the betterment of a large group of people. And to me, that's the greatest thing of Mr. Carson. Is he is committed now to use his own life to improve the quality of lives of others through using the lives of elders. And to me, that's the highest it gets.
But indeed, the late night program became something so much more, because all of a sudden, too, an institution that wasn't necessarily accessible. It's a multiracial facility, you know, and oh wow, the leadership in there are more black people working there, you know, and it's amazing how a little idea and a driving force that some wide-eyed young man might have, you know, can turn into something that changes institutions.
You know, Dr. Mims, you know, Ramona, you know, Bernice, you know, Dr. Hardeman. These are trailblazers. Truly, they are considered elders, you know, beyond just definition. If I had any words of encouragement about that task that I see you doing, it would be this: you're never alone. Some may not ever understand the depth of your vision. When God gives a vision, there's two major parts in it. If you see a vision, just think of a circle, and I put a line right down the middle. One side of that circle is negotiable, and the other side is non-negotiable. It's left up to the visionary to know the difference.
The future is that we have to continue to raise up Ramona Bennett and Bernice Moorhead and Charles Carson. We have to continue to encourage them to fight for what is right. And I don't know what the future look like, but I know one thing, that if we don't take care of people who don't have homes, the homelessness, people who are low income, pretty soon we'll be robbed. Tell me that. I thought for sure she had actually given birth to you. That's how much love I felt when she would talk to me about, because we went for years of not seeing each other. And I go, aha, she been hiding that secret from me.
All right, so to my brothers and sisters of all cultures and races, you probably know now my past, my history, but let me point this out in a quick statement. When you have this, what's behind me, and you listen, you can't fail. Women are powerful. They've always been powerful. We need to change the narratives. We need to restructure the way we think. And these ladies taught me to do that. And with that, it creates challenges. It creates backlash because people don't want to change the norm. They don't want to change the things that have kept them kind of in their comfort zone for so long. But with the right strategy, with the right focus, with the right education and mentorship, we can actually change things in a good way that's inclusive for everybody. This is probably the most iconic thing I've ever done. In 30 years, if I'm still alive, I will play this and I will look back and know that I was blessed to have some of the strongest women in the city of Tacoma's history that had my back. Peace.
Through both light and dark days of his life, music was always a refuge for Charles. In 1990, Charles started writing music and songs. Following the example of his hero Prince, Charles would teach himself to play guitar, bass guitar, piano and drums, and would produce, compose, and perform his own original music. CC Dove was born.
You're a beautiful bird of wings on the wings of. Search inside yourself for the song that frees your soul. Sing it loud, and you can fly your way to a brighter day.
Now's the time. Change our minds. And if you're blind, open up your eyes and find. It takes a true human being to hold another near. It takes true love to help another see beyond the tears.
See beyond your tears, lost hopes and all your fears. But if you stand by me, then I will help you see. I see beyond your tears, lost hopes and all your fears. But if you stand by me, then I will help you see.
Now I don't walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Left my mark in the dark and continued the quest. I've seen things that should never be seen with two eyes. Went to war with the demons inside. Still I ride and I rise up. Walk the earth with force. No remorse for a sucker trying to block my course. It's been a long, hard road. Almost sold my soul. And I'm still climbing hills. Sometimes I don't know what for. I ain't hating, only waking people up from the dream. We need some real players, ones who's gonna stay down with the team. And that's why I keep it popping, dropping critical hits. And false brothers get covered like a solar eclipse. I run diagnostics every time I flip a funky track, only the facts be falling off my lips. Suckers trip when I spit, I break it off to the fullest. My mic's the trigger, I pull it, my attitude is the bullet. Went to war with the demons inside, still I ride.
I mean, I love you. I'm really pleased with everything you've done. I feel bad that you put child welfare in front of your music. But then we had that discussion. You said, what if I never use my music for anything? And I said, it's already saved your life.
From being around the way, hanging out at the parks, being on the streets, you knew who Charles was. Charles was at Lincoln doing stuff with kids that could be vulnerable, and so got to know him and Stephen, and was introduced to governor's school, and so got nominated to go to that.
Because I kind of knew that you would, once you were off the drugs, because you started playing your guitar and doing all your stuff, that I kind of knew that you'd be able to run with it, and you had that. If once Charles puts his mind to it, then it's gonna get done, no matter what. No matter who he has to rah 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 and yell and scare people. That's okay. But and I'd always tell people, Charles is gonna do something. I just, I don't know. Whatever he gets it done, he'll call and let me know. When he wants some help or something, he'll just give me a jingle. But I've always known you were gonna accomplish more. Even once you got off the drugs, it was just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think if he hadn't have met Charles, things probably would have been different. I think it was a blessed meeting for the two of them in life, and they're still very good friends. And Charles was very, what should I say, very top-notch in putting him in the direction his life went.
The impact that she had on Charles, when Charles told me what she told him about stay off of drugs and you have a place to live, I saw her growing in him and him doing things because she inspired him.
Mom said, hey Ron, I'm going to do a guest speaker at Martin Luther King rally in Lakewood, and I would like you and your daughter to come. I said, all right, cool. So a couple days later, he hands me a flyer to remind me. And I'm running through the flyer, and I'm like, my boy's been through a lot, man. He's done a lot. He's been recognized a lot. And I never even knew it. And me and him been hanging out for a long time since then. So you would think, it would come out in conversation that, hey, I did this. Hey, I got that. Humble, man. Just never even spoke about it. And not saying it changed my perspective on him, but it changed my perspective on him, because he doesn't talk about it. He didn't do it for that.
Having a single parent that actually took care of me, made sure I was safe, worked, made sure I had a roof over my head. And then another person would be Charles. I mean, Charles was my big brother. I was with him pretty much almost every day from the age of 14 to like 25 pretty much. I mean, Charles was trying to start these programs to stop all this violence and stuff like that, and do these things that he would do, like the late night program and all that stuff, and all the other things that he's done in his life. Had good people around me, and then obviously the main source is Charles Carson was like my big brother during this whole time. So, and yeah, but stop the violence.
I would honestly say the YMCA was like the main place, because we'd always go. That'd be our main thing. You know, he'd have to get his lift in. He'd either be running hoops, and you know, I'd just be hanging out with him. Late night, you know, I'd see him checking in kids, even like schooling kids on life. They'd run up to him and ask him, you know, what should I be doing? And you know, you need to be doing this, or make sure you're doing this. And sports, he'd school him on how to hoop. He, you know, in the process, of course, he's helping me, but it's cool seeing him devote that same love and care. Like, he's not picking favoritism. Like, just because I'm his son, he's not devoting any more special care to me than he would the next person inside the building.
You know, became the son I never had, and definitely is best dad my granddaughter could ever ask for. Got some things, there was some similarities, you know, growing up poor, growing up in broken homes, so, you know, a lot of similarities. We both had the same drive. We always wanted more for our kids and grandkids, so that we share, and you know, we often talk about what we do to get that at any cost, making sure that they won't go through what we went through.
My name is Jasmine Barton, and I'm the daughter of Charles, and this is his granddaughter, Evelyn. The way he raised me is helping me a lot with how I raise my daughter, you know, and how I want my daughter to be raised. You know, he set the bar very high for men that come into my life, you know, and I want that to be for her too. I want her expectations to be up, you know, out the charts. You know, he's always raised me not to judge people, and, you know, be a good person, and always pray. Overall, my dad, he's a good guy. He means well. He comes off a little stern, a little harsh sometimes, but you know it's all out of love. He means the world to me. Hey.
Perfect.
Okay.
My favorite things I like to do with my dad is play basketball. I like to wrestle and fight with him.
So is your dad a decent basketball player?
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some of the most important things my dad has taught me to avoid is doing drugs and drinking alcohol. That he has taught a lot of people to like stay away from negative stuff, and that he's also a great mentor and a great teacher.
So I think Charles' just commitment to always wanting to help people is something I've always seen from him. Like when we worked at the foster care industry, kids would come in and need things, and Charles would never hesitate to, like, you know, try to find and get the resources they need, whether it be school clothes or they wanted to do like after school club or needed to get somewhere, even calling me sometimes and being like, hey, I have a foster kid that needs a ride. Are you able to, you know, pick him up? And it was always just like him always wanting to help people, which I think is a good quality to have.
Him and I shared a bedroom, listened to Prince and Metallica, Megadeth, all these different artists. Have his windows down, his trunk open, blaring music in the street. People looking at him like, man, who is this black kid playing this rock music on the east side of Tacoma wearing the leather glove? He just keeps it real, you know, even up to this day. If you say something in the wrong manner, Charles will let you know. Hey, that's wrong, you don't treat people like that. Charles cares for all these children and all our people. Man, knowing Charles Lamont Carson, man, and, you know, having him as my brother, you know, it's something I take a lot of pride from.
Just everything that I've learned, just, you know, camping, on the native side, you know, making us read books like Malcolm X and learning who that is. You don't have to be in the streets just because you grew up in the streets doesn't mean you have to stay in the streets, you know. Taught us about the gateway drugs, and he tried to prevent us from being in the streets and, you know, doing a lot of the mistakes that we ended up still making. He really tried to prevent us from making those.
My grandma always says, this is my black son, and, you know, he's just been a fixture and a part of our family since I can remember. You know, it is funny, there are a lot of things that he followed in Ramona's footsteps on. And man, I can remember coming to the Boys and Girls Club when you guys used to have those nights, the youth nights at the YMCA, I'm sorry, and play basketball and hang out. And we just thought that was the coolest thing ever, and the impact that had for kids that really needed a safe place to be.
I believe that Mont was really happy to be, within our family circle, our tight-knit circle right there. He was looking and he found love through my mom. That's what I see. And, she had specific things that she would want Charles to do or Mont to do. And you know what he'd do? He'd do them. He'd actually listen. But I wasn't jealous or nothing of that. I was happy that somebody was going to listen to this woman, and I'm proud of Charles for the accomplishments and the way he's living his life now.
In 1988, Charles Lamont Carson was beaten, shot, and left for dead. With the love and support of his native mother, Ramona Bennett, and her family, and the patience, love, and support of dozens of friends and mentors, Charles was born again. He became a native son and would embrace, support, and defend his newfound family forever. Between 1988 and 2003, he graduated high school, earned his bachelor's and master's degrees. Charles volunteered literally thousands of hours in his community and across the United States. He created dozens of community projects with remarkable results, impacting hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Charles has raised his two beautiful children, Charles II and his daughter Jasmine Barton. He is currently raising his beautiful and playful son Anthony, who is named after Charles's older brother, Anthony Harris. He also has two beautiful granddaughters, Amaya and Evelyn. In the footsteps of his mother Ramona, Charles started his own foster and adoption agency, and in 2019 started his nonprofit Live for Love Human Outreach. Most importantly, Charles still hears her voice of wisdom from long ago. He has remained clean and sober for 35 years.
I told all of my kids, everything I told you, I told all of my kids and lots of other kids. And you're really the only one that really listened.
And for her to stop her car and grab Mont, knowing that he was not he wasn't in a good situation, and to say, I got you, come here.
I just wanted to say thanks, for taking care of my friend.
It's like an angel on your shoulder. That's what she is to a lot of people, especially my father. Like, you go to make a decision, and she's one of those important people that you remember upon making certain decisions. Like, I need to uphold my end of the bargain.
And I've met Ramona. I couldn't ask for a nicer, sweeter lady. And I think she kind of gave him that stability and that drive to get a good life.
One of the things that she instilled in her and wanted in her household was for all of us to be clean and sober, for all of us to go to school and get an education, and for some of us girls to be on birth control. She'd say birth control and then college.
Ramona Bennett, she's bad. She's cut from quality that can't be mentioned.
So many of our friends were either dead or in prison or still using drugs. I was so happy that you had the person, you had Ramona. I was so happy that you had Ramona.
I'm grateful to Ramona for that. And I watched the little process and how patient she was with him. And she's a lady of few words, but when she says something, there's a lot behind it. She's a warrior lady, man, and in a way, I'm glad that I've actually been able to meet her. And it's funny because when you look at all the stuff that she's done, it's funny because she used to live just right up the street from me. And
what if I told you that there is life after death, and the most unlikely of heroes become warriors, that dreams do come true, just not in the way you'd expect. Sometimes the power of love flows stronger than the river, and culture and tradition define family. It takes courage to love, to step outside of oneself, to lead the oppressed to a place of justice and safety. Love breaks down the walls of fear and segregation. It opens doors that lead to hope, giving birth to second chances, allowing a young black kid to help guide other kids to the light. Relationships are beautiful and necessary, no matter what race, culture, age, or gender, and with compassion, love, empathy, and understanding, these relationships can last a lifetime and change the world. As you have discovered in this true story about the life, death, and rebirth of a native son.
Yo, from the back of the bus, now I'm up in your grill, doing things spit slang that you can't even feel. Imitating steady, waiting for the next episode, anticipating my creations while you hate on the low. I make you stop or go like remote control. Freeze time when I rhyme, the universe unfolds. When I blow, it's atomic, supersonic, my phonic, electronic, I'm bionic, and my versions are chronic. Was illiterate, now I spit endless amounts of words, verbs, nouns, sounds you can't even pronounce. So many flows stack, I don't even bother to count. Lay my rap on the track, best believe you gon' bounce. Every ounce of my soul goes into the flow. Ain't no limit to the places where my mind can go. Stay connected to the mental and the spiritual. Produce unlimited amounts of material. From a slave in chains, now I'm bringing the pain. Hearing screams in your dreams, tormenting your brain. 9 for a 9, fight fire with rain. Kill your flame and in shame, you will praise my name. I remain unchanged while you fade to black. Spit fire when I rap, and you melt like wax. Perpetual, ain't no limit to my potential. Invincible, powerful, eternal. Let's go. Now why you standing there looking all confused and shocked? You can kill Dr. King, but the dream don't stop. It keeps flowing and I'm glowing like a beam of light. You can stare if you dare, but you might lose sight. I'm too bright, you can't see, you can't handle the sun. Let alone try to stare upon the chosen one. If you want some, come, cause my mic weighs a ton. But in the end, all buzzers get beat like a drum. I overcome all odds with finesse and skill. Making moves like jets coming in for the kick. I stay hot, never drop below 1,000 degrees. An epidemic when I finish, spreading like a disease. Stopping enemies, enemy tracks, they don't match. By the time they react, they been wiped off the map. Once I make contact, that's it. Send them to a place much darker than a solar eclipse. I am the cure, making sure that the real gets dry. I don't care why you're hiding, don't care what you got. Let your ego go and you can ride with me. I stay slave while I'm cooling in the land of the free. So if you can't stand the heat, then you best break north. Cause I'm hotter than a torch and you will get scorched. I am perpetual, no limit to my potential. Invincible, powerful, eternal. Let's go, come on.
Stop. I cannot. If you beat me down, I am back every time. If you kill me, I'll come back strong and be full. I am born again. I am no slave. I am invincible. I am perpetual. I am powerful. I am eternal.
Now I done passed every test while the rest gave in. Saw my sweat turn to blood dripping off of my skin. Backstabbed by friends and the sins of men. But that's cool, in the end I'ma get my revenge. I've been stripped and went beat down to the floor. No matter what, I rose up and came back for more. And every time I came back stronger than before. But this time my mind's primed with an infinite flow. Now I done been down the block and I face hard knocks. Take everything you got, give me your best shot. Don't be shocked when you stop and I still ain't dropped. Pound for pound, break you down like a cardboard box. I was there before God made the heavens and earth. Bear witness with his hands for man for dirt. And my birth was the first to offset the curse. And put the drama in reverse before it all got worse. But you still got the nerve to get up in my face. Hypocrites still trip over things I create. Split the seeds with ease, streets, time and space. Still you hate, watch you break when I steal your fate. I am the Alpha and Omega, that's the A and the Z. Mortality is what separates you from unusual. Ain't no limit to my potential. You can't stop my flow. I am eternal.